Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome here. This is a follow-up video from a video made before about staking. We discussed that staking is a broad topic. It's not one thing, it's many things. And someone asked a question. Saw your video, needs a bit more clarity on ETH staking. Okay, here's the clarity. Especially from a proof of stake perspective, which is what the topic was about, and how it contributes towards network security. That's the narrative. Also, staking return not being a consistent percentage as a riba, that's the claim. Additionally, I guess the amount staked is actually not loaned to someone. Another point. Okay, let's continue. So before we look at Ethereum mining, just have a quick look at Bitcoin mining. So if you understand how proof of work works, then you should understand how proof of stake is different. So with mining, in order to be a miner, you have to actually have a computer to do the work. If you want more details about how the whole system works, click on the QR code or look at the link below. You can see how mining works. I made a whole series on it. So you connect your computer to the network, you receive transactions, you validate that these transactions are correctly from the owners of those private keys. Then you look for a number. You add a number 1, for example, and then you hash all that information and you get a fingerprint of what it looks like. And if that fingerprint looks correct, then the block is valid. But this one is incorrect. You give try number 2, still incorrect. And we keep on trying numbers until we get to the right number. And we can see here, you have number which the fingerprint or the hash of this block of information, the transactions and the number is 00000 blah blah. So as long as it has the right number of zeros at the beginning of the hash, and we cannot know that unless we find the number, that's how we know it's a valid block. Once we do that, this is a valid block. We transmit that block to the internet, and then everyone in the network, nodes and miners, will check that block, the transactions with that number. They would hash it as well and say, okay, yes, it gives the right result. It's a valid block, and then they move on. And the new block is made and added to the network. But if staking is very different on Ethereum. We still have computers, like on a Bitcoin mining network, but each computer doesn't all do work. They all do nothing. What they do instead is that they stake a certain number of ETH. As you can see here, there's various number of ETH. And then we have a collective pool of how much ETH is staked in the entire network. And this gives a number of percentage of how much of the network you have staked. That percentage determines how often you will be chosen to make a valid block. So once transactions are received, a person will be chosen. Let's say the guy who has the most ETH, because he's most likely to be chosen. And then he has to check these blocks that they're valid transactions. And once he's done that and made a block, then he'll be rewarded with a new ETH, new block of information, and maybe some extra transaction fees. Ethereum actually has an interesting feature whereby there's a base fee which is destroyed, and then anything excess of that goes to the miners. So the miners will get paid twice, once from the block reward and once through the excess for transaction fees. And we can see from that, inherently, those who stake and validate blocks will grow more and more ETH. And those who don't stake but use the network will have less and less ETH because their transaction fees are being destroyed. Whereas those who validate are earning more ETH. So money will always trickle upwards, which is always the case with riba, interest. Money trickles up to those who have money. And is taken away from those who don't or have less of it. So let's have a quick comparison between how a normal bank deposit works and Ethereum network. I'm not suggesting that it's exactly the same, but I'm saying that it is similar enough to make the case that it's effectively riba. If we agree that bank deposits and interest in that is riba, then the similarity should say the same. So with bank deposits, you put money into the bank, whereas in Ethereum network, you deposit money in the network. You stake it in the network. Banks owe you money. Likewise, the network owes you Ethereum. When I say owes you, meaning that it's no longer yours. You no longer use it. You can't move it. You can't do anything to it. It's now in the network. You can withdraw it, but it's not yours to use. They owe it to you. Banks have reserves increase. So the more the banks have deposits, the more the bank has more in reserve. Likewise, the more that's staked in the network has more ETH staked in the network. So just change the word network for bank. Change the word from deposit to stake. New money is created through bank loans. New ETH is created through each block algorithmically. Now, some may say this is different. that's made through loans. This is made algorithmically. Number one, that loan that's made from banks is secondary to your deposit. Your deposit is a loan to the bank and you get interest. The bank also makes money through money lending. That's another thing. That's secondary. The fact is, you're making interest regardless of what the bank does anyway. And likewise, Ethereum network makes new coins regardless of how much is staked, but it's still dependent and contingent on staking. Because if no one stakes anything, there's no blocks. Depositors earn profit based on how much is deposited, and stakers earn a yield based on how much is staked. The greater the deposit, the greater the yield. The greater the stake, the greater the yield. Also, the greater the percentage of your stake in the network, the greater the yield as well. So essentially, the staking is a variable rate. It's not a fixed rate. One could say your bank deposit is a fixed rate interest, whereas Ethereum is a variable rate. From your deposit, money is made, and from the stake, more money is made. Depositors withdraw at any time, and likewise, you can withdraw your stake from Ethereum network at any time with a 5-day delay, by the way, which proves that it's not in your possession anymore because it takes 5 days to get it back. Effective possession is lost when you deposit because they owe you money. Likewise, effective possession of your ETH is lost because you can't just take it back whenever you want. You have to wait days. And those who earn interest from their deposits, also those who don't earn interest, those who don't deposit their money into a bank and earn interest, they are losing value through inflation. But those who don't stake are also losing value through inflation and through burning. There are some nuanced differences between the two, but hopefully you see and agree with me that these differences are not meaningful. So banks have more liabilities than they can fulfill, and Ethereum network, they can always fulfill all its stake. Fine. That's not. I don't think it's a meaningful difference, but it is a difference. Each bank can potentially default and not pay you back, whereas the Ethereum network doesn't really have that. Really, not really, unless the network breaks, which therefore that's a big default to everyone. But you can lose some money through what's called slashing. If you produce an invalid block or you delay in producing a block, you can have some of your stake destroyed, which is why we stake in the first place, or why they stake in the first place. The more you stake, the more you have at stake, hence the word stake. You have more at stake to be destroyed. Also, money is created through further lending, where Ethereum is algorithmically created regardless of the amount of stake. We kind of mentioned it before. There is a slight nuance difference, but I don't think it's a meaningful difference. So the conclusion, I believe, is that primary objective of the Ethereum network is to emulate the banking system. Hence why the wording, the phraseology, the model that they used when they made the system was banking. And hence why I talk about words like yield and the more you get the gist. Income is generated algorithmically and is guaranteed algorithmically, much like interest, money is guaranteed based on your stake. Income is relevant to the amount of work you do. So there's no opportunity to work harder in the network. The only way to earn more is to add more money. I mean, that even sounds like a Ponzi, but that's the only way to earn more money is to add more money. There's near zero risk. Again, if you eliminate state slashing, which basically means if you just produce invalid blocks, if you eliminate slashing, then there's practically no risk. Especially if you join a mining pool, then there's practically no risk because there's a big infrastructure and whatnot. Anyway, income is intrinsically tied to the amount you stake. We mentioned this before, which is why the model is based off of interest. The more you deposit, the more you lend to the network, the more you earn back. That's what it is, man. Potential is percentage based, as opposed to actual business. You might invest a certain amount and earn loads or nothing or lose. That's actual business. So back to the question. So again, he mentions about proof of stake being security to the network. It may provide security to the network, but that security is irrelevant to the model. The model is deposit money and get more money or get money based on your deposit. The more you deposit, the more you earn. What happens after you deposit is irrelevant. Much like it's irrelevant what banks do with your deposit after you deposit it, it's irrelevant what they do. The fact is, a bank could say, well, you're securing the banking system by providing liquidity. It means nothing. The stake is not consistent. Yeah, the Ethereum network is a variable rate variable interest rate. It's not a fixed rate. That doesn't make it not riba. Riba is any benefit you get from a loan. And it's not loan to someone. That's a very good point, in the sense that many people think that because you're not giving it to a person, therefore it's not actually riba. And I would say, just like we've moved beyond the idea that money has to be intrinsic, physical, it can be digital. Likewise, we have to also include this model here, whereby it's not just lending it to a person. It could be also a thing. It could also be a smart contract. The reality is you've given money to something or someone, you no longer have it, and you are rewarded in proportion to how much you've given. So that's why I still think that it is based on riba and it emulates riba, and that's the words that they use. Hopefully, you find this video beneficial, and hopefully, I kept this video short. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.